Good morning, Magic. I'm Gavin Verhey from Wizards of the Coast, and today I've got both of the brand new Innistrad Midnight Hunt Commander decks here, Coven Counters and Undead Unleashed, and we're going to open them both up, look through all the cards, tell some stories, and show you exactly what's inside. Excited? Let's get into it. We're going to start with the Undead Unleashed deck today and see exactly what mayhem we're going to unleash on people. Death is indeed a minor inconvenience, with Will Helt at the helm here. You can read all about it. But what's better than reading about it on the back is actually opening up the deck. So let's do just that. They've got these great pull tabs at the bottom. We can just go like this, pull it open. Shows off this little blue-black right there. Tells you what you're getting. And it just slides right on out, which is exactly what we're going to do. I love that it's a cool new feature of these decks here. This part stays up here. You can bring it down though. And there's these punch-out counters. We started doing these, I think, with the last Commander set. But I always love this. Vitri Confetti. It's always nice. But these can be great for +1/+1 counters, or if you're playing with like Ikoria cards, Menace counters, or whatever you have lying around, charge counters. Use it for your hoof print counters on Hoofers of the Stag. I don't know. You live your own life. But a lot of cool stuff there you can punch out. And on the back, you've got this little divider you can punch out too, if you so want. I've also known some folks who've taken to cutting out the front face here. This is just a cardboard, but if you want to cut it out and use it to decorate your deck box or something, go nuts. All right, so those are gone. Now let's look at what comes inside this deck box here. You get a few things. First of all, I guess you do get this deck box. I should show this off. You get the little commander symbol on the front. You get Will Helt's lovely face here on the back. You get this little separator we don't need. One of the things you get is this life wheel. These are great for keeping track of your life total. They spin from 1 through 20 on one side. On the other side, go all the way up to 40. So it's a great way, with one hand, you can keep track of your life total. If you've never seen one of these, they come in all our Commander decks pretty much now. And they, of course, some nice theming to the set here with the werewolf. And then there's the insert, which will tell you on one side a bit about Commander, which good chance you already know about if you're checking out this video, but maybe you don't. If you don't, go check out my video on how to play Commander. And on the other side, you get to hear a bunch about Will Helt himself. So it tells you the story of Will Helt. I'm not going to read it off for you, but if you want to read more, you can pause the video and check it out right here. See what the deal with Will Helt's background and flavor is, which is pretty cool. Also, I actually haven't seen this ad before. This is cool. It's fun. Fibblethip just hanging out in a game store. Poor Fibblethip. That guy shows up everywhere. Then on the other side, right, so there is rules on how to play Commander. One thing that we do on these that I do want to call out, though, is advice on playing the deck. So if you're looking for how to play this deck properly and what kind of stuff you should be doing, there's some great tips on the back here for playing the deck that talks about basically how you want to set up your Commander deck to work. We often include some pretty nice gameplay tips here for just playing it right out of the box with no other information. Although we're going to look at all the cards right now, so you'll get a good idea of the deck. But if you just want to pick up and play, I always recommend flipping to that page and checking out what's going on. All right, well then, without any further ado, let's get right into opening this up and showing off all the goodies that's inside these Innistrad Midnight Hunt decks. And of course, I want to call out, continuing in, I think Strixhaven was the first set we did these for. We've got the new thick commanders in front. These are, or in the back rather, but you take the front-facing commander, which is normal card stock, normal card size, what you expect from your Will Helt. And this is a thicker version. It's almost like a credit card stock is how I like to think of it. It's got a good heft to it. It goes plop like this. I don't know if that came up, but it's got a good plop to it. And you're just looking at them on the side, right? This one is clearly thicker than the other one. And they're kind of just a bonus value add in your Commander deck. And here's what Will Helt does if you aren't familiar. So this is the blue-black zombies deck. It's zombie tribal, basically, is what's going on here. And the front-facing commander uses the new Decayed mechanic. One thing that's cool about these set Commander decks is we get to link them up to what's going on in the main set. And showing off Decayed here as a different take on zombies. It lets you amass a lot of zombies. Sounds like a fun thing to do. And of course, turning your zombies into cards sounds pretty hot, because it lets you turn your Decayed zombies, which, they're okay. They attack maybe in a game of Commander, but they can't block or anything. Well, it turns those into cards, which is pretty nice. But also just in other decks you might build, it doubles up on all your sacrifice synergies, right? Anything that says sacrifice a creature, do blah, turns all your zombies into double sacrificing, which is pretty nice because you sack it, you get a Decayed token, you sack it again. So that's pretty cool. And then the backup commander here is Aloy's Nafalia Sleuth. This is sort of like an investigatey commander. Cool thing about this, I think, is we often use these backup commanders to point the decks in different directions. So it's like your front-facing commander, cool, that's about one thing. Your backup commander lets you do a very different thing with your deck, or let you go build a different deck if you want to. And in this case, you can go build a different kind of investigate sacrifice deck that cares about sacrificing tokens. So you can go build like a blue-black tokens deck or something, which I think is pretty sweet. So there's Aloy's there. Now let's go into the rest of the decks. We've got, of course, a ton of reprints. You know, a lot of tribal stuff, like Distant Melody, of course. Drawing cards for all your zombies. Cards that make lots of zombies. Of course, zombie armies from War of the Spark. Don't sleep on those. Commander Classic, Corpse Augur, something good removal, and Feed the Swarm. Fleshbag Marauder. There's always, you know, debate around which one of these folks like more. It's like Fleshbag Marauder or the Merciless Executioner, or now there's the one from Guilds of Ravnica, where they have to discard a card if they can't sacrifice. Anyway, but here's good old Fleshbag Marauder. Zombie. It's getting the job done. Go for the Throat. That's a nice removal spell. Solid removal stuff going on here. So the deck is not just all zombies. There are some non-zombie creatures. Here's a human warlock that pumps all your zombies. So sometimes when we make tribal decks, we want to make sure everything is on theme, or everything is the type. In this case, we were okay, you know, saying, yeah, let's put in some non-zombies that pump your zombies. That makes sense. And this card can make you, you know, zombies every turn and pumps up all your zombies, so it works. Also, just a bunch of old tribal lords. Lord of the Accursed is here. Card that works well with sacrificing. This is great with Decayed, right? You pay 3 mana and turn a Decayed zombie into a card and a life. Siphon Flesh. This is another card that showed up in a commander deck originally. Despite the kind of gross artwork, it's really strong here. Kills off a creature from each opponent, gives you a zombie. So usually that's going to be 3 zombies, and they sack 3 creatures. Another nice tribal zombie lord, Undead Augur. It's kind of cool to see one deck bring together all the different zombie tribal rewards from sets. Here's one from Dark Ascension back in original Innistrad block. So you kind of get a good mix of everything, you know. Zombie tokens of Hexproof and Menace. Well, hey, how about those Decayed tokens? Here's a dragon that cares about sacrificing creatures. Pretty good with your Decayed tokens, which are going to die anyway, right? So that's kind of cool. Arcane Signet, of course, goes in basically every commander precon these days. Got some diamonds, sphere. Here's your mana rock pile. Soul Ring, of course. Talisman of Dominance. This is a very popular request for a reprint. I get asked for this all the time. Now it's finally here, and people are always like, "Why don't you reprint the Talismans more often? Why don't you reprint Wayfarer's Bauble more often?" Well, we know about them. They'll be in commander decks. You know, just in time. All things in time. But we made a blue-black deck, and here's your Talisman. Mana base. We've got Bajuka Bog, Command Tower. A lot of the usual suspects here. Get stuff back with Mortuary Mire. Myriad Landscape, Path of Ancestry, especially good, of course, given the zombie tribal nature of the set. The Tainted Lands, these are always pretty funny to me. These weirdo Torment cycle of lands that go in our black-based decks. All right, now let's talk about some of the new cards that show up here. We're hit a section of those. So here's the Cleaver Scab. Allows you to turn your zombies into more zombies. So you can sack a Decayed token to make 2 Decayed tokens, or if you make a really cool token, perhaps, you can sack them. And one thing that I think is, if you make a really cool zombie, you can make 2 copies of them. A lot of zombies have abilities that stack in multiples. You can sack one of your tribal lords to get 2. And the fun thing here that's really nice is you can then keep the chain going, right? So you sacrifice 1 zombie, you get 2 zombies. Then you've got 2 token copies. So the next turn, you tap and sacrifice another one, and you end up with 3. So it's really good with tribal lords and getting your engines rolling, which is pretty fun. Just don't do it with your legendary creatures like your commander, because they'll legend rule each other. So every deck has 2 curses, and in this cycle, and then there's also one in the set booster cards. And the idea with Corey Bowen, who was the lead designer, shout out to Corey, by the way. The deal with the set booster curse and this curse here, and the other ones in the commander decks we'll see, is that they're curses that you will often put on your opponent, but you don't always want to put on your opponent. Sometimes you want to put it on yourself. And this is actually one of the ones that I think you're most likely to want to put on yourself, because you can just cheat out a creature every turn. Granted, it costs 7 mana, but if you build your deck right, maybe you want a Curse of Unbinding yourself and constantly get a sweet creature. Or, you know what, just cast it on your opponent and get their best creature every turn. Target the green deck at the table or something. So you'll see this kind of theme running through the curses of like, yeah, enchant your opponent sometimes, enchant yourself every now and then. Drown in Dreams, another card here. This uses this thing that we started doing with Commander Legends that you've seen a couple times more now with Clouth's Will in the last set. Now we've got Drown in Dreams, which is not named after Will, but it's basically do one. If you control a commander, you can do both. This is when you get to draw X or mill twice X. Normally you're going to want to mill yourself in this deck, but in a late commander game, you could kill somebody, especially keep in mind that you can target the same player with both these. So if you do it for, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a large number, 10, you can mill them for 20 and have them draw 10 cards, which puts them 30 cards down in their deck, so not impossible to mill them. Empty the Laboratory. This is, in the vein of polymorph style cards. They're a lot of fun. We always enjoy making good polymorphs or fun polymorphs. We've got like a fun tribal polymorph here, which is pretty cool. One problem we always have when making these kind of cards is solving for the I polymorph into an Eldrazi issue. Just how do I stop okay, turn 3, you turned your token into an Eldrazi, aren't you clever? And here by making you forced to be target zombies, it really limits what you can get. There's still some sweet zombies in Magic, but you can't get anything and everything at all times. Having some zombie tribal lords is important. Like, we want enough cards in the deck to call out zombies. So here's a card that calls out zombies, for example. We've seen a number of these so far. We want some generic cards like Drown in Dreams that are cool, but also just having some cards which are very much, hey, I'm a tribal lord, make your zombies more awesome is sweet. And one of the interesting questions we ask ourselves when we're building a commander deck like this is, okay, zombies tend to be base black. There's blue ones for sure in Innistrad, but they're base black. What can blue give to zombies that black normally wouldn't? And flying is the obvious answer. So making a lord that gives all your zombies flying makes a lot of sense. And of course, it's got this other cool ability on it too, with its zombie tribal. Shadowkin is here. Love a good clone. Clones are super fun, and of course, the card clone itself has been outmoded, I think, pretty significantly. But that lets us print other interesting variants of clones at 4 mana. And here's one that gives you new options every turn. Vesuvan Doppelganger is a sweet card from the very beginning of Magic. And that inspired cards like Vesuvan Shapeshifter and Time Spiral Block. And anytime you have a clone that switches what it can be, I think that's a pretty enjoyable play pattern because the dream is so big on those. And this is a great example of one that you can find really sweet cards with. And the fact that it's each player should give you some pretty saucy options. One thing we're very careful about when designing cards is to not have you look at too many cards and give you too many options. And this is kind of, I think, at the upper end of what we would do, because every turn you're going to see 12 Magic cards that you then have to read if you don't know them. But because it narrows it down to just the creatures, that helps out. If, for example, this could turn into any permanent, that would be a lot of potential reading you'd have to do. But just creatures, I think, get below the threshold barely for what's going on here. One thing we're really big on, and I did a video about this a while ago, talking about Arcane Signet, are 3-mana colored mana rocks. I think there's a lot of design space here. Midnight Clock being an example of one of these, Cursed Mirror being another example of one of these, because they let you do something that's really on theme for your color and your deck that is stronger than we can give you on a non-colored mana rock, and doing colored artifacts lets us kind of do this. And here's a great example of a zombie mana rock. So what does a black aligned zombie mana rock look like, which I think is pretty cool. And this just sits around, makes mana for a while, and then someday when you're ready to crack it, gives you, I don't know, 10 zombies or something ridiculous, a huge number of zombies, which is pretty sweet. Notably, if you can return this to the battlefield anyway, it's very good to get back into play after you crack it, because you're going to have a lot of creatures that will die, so keep that in mind, Artifact deck fans. Curse of Restless Dead. So here is the black one of this curse cycle. And once again, often you want to put it on the green player at the table, for example. Maybe you put this in your black-green landfall deck or something like that, your Jund landfall deck, and put it on yourself and make a bunch of zombie tokens too. Can't block with them, but still can attack and gives you a ton of tokens and sack fodder over the course of a game. One of my favorite card names in Magic history, I saw this card name and just cackled with glee. Ghoul's Night Out. I thought this was actually the playtest name for the card when I saw it. I didn't realize it was the actual name for the final card. I'm so happy that it stuck. Otherwise, I think it's just cool that, take a card out of everyone's graveyard. That's pretty sweet. It lets you play with everyone's graveyard and get their ETBs, which is really nice. Once again, this is a card that we are often careful about with the effects, because you have to look through everyone else's graveyard to find a card from each that you like. But hopefully it's prescriptive enough that you're just like, hey, you ask the table, what's the best creature to get back? They look through the graveyard and they tell you. We're careful about those kind of loading screens. We don't want too many of them, but especially given that it's like, what is the best ETB effect is going to normally be the question, because the tokens go away after a turn. This should be pretty easy to process, or at least not too difficult to process. It's a sweet card, too. And looking to find commander-sized ways to do Decayed was a fun challenge. How do we make it so so we can do cards that are exciting with this new mechanic, which is kind of a limited focus mechanic or standard focus mechanic? And this is a great example of one that gives you a bunch of stuff back. You just got to be okay with it going away when it attacks. Gorex the Tomb Shell. So one thing we started doing with Strixhaven, I made a video about it, is 2 front-facing commanders that can helm the deck, and a bonus legend in the deck that you get to play with. And here's our bonus legend, Gorex the Tomb Shell. Who doesn't love a zombie turtle? Am I right? This is just kind of a fun, goofy mechanical card that cares about stuff in your graveyard. We often like these being really sideways build-arounds, and I look forward to someone building a sweet graveyard zombie deck with this, or, of course, your turtle tribal deck. Have fun, although I think Arkalos probably solved that for a lot of people. There's not many zombie turtles. Meandering Tomb Shell is the other one that comes to mind, but anyway, that's kind of what's going on here. We've got the Prowling Geist Catcher. So one of the funny things about cards that have you exile other cards to count them is normally you expect them to not work with tokens. And it's kind of a bummer because you're like, wow, I'm playing this with all these tokens I want to sacrifice, but I care about exiling something. Well, I don't get the bonus off the token. Well, here we actually fix that, right? If you exile actual cards, well, sweet, you get the last bonus. But if you exile tokens, for example, your Decayed bonus, you still grow the Prowling Geist Catcher. So I think that's a neat short line of text that helps make sure you don't feel bad when your tokens die and your main theme is going off. So it's a cool solution here. Otherwise, I mean, pretty cool to get a bunch of stuff under this, and then once you can double sack everything or get all your ETB triggers back and all that good stuff. ETB, if you don't know, stands for Enters the Battlefield. I kind of use that as a shorthand here. Ravenous Rotbelly lets you sacrifice zombie tokens, make them sacrifice stuff. It's like can be a triple barter in blood under good circumstances. Let's use all those Decayed tokens to good use. A big debate on this card was whether or not you should be able to sacrifice itself. That's often a hot topic, right? Is it okay if a card can use itself to sack and do its thing? Because it kind of feels weird to play it as a sorcery, almost. But in this case, we talked about it, decided that especially with zombies, it makes sense for them to sacrifice themselves to do mean stuff to other people. So we let it slide on this one. But you'll notice we've moved to a lot more sacrifice another creature and not allow it to sacrifice itself. Here's another zombie lord. We want to make sure that that there's some classic tribal lords, like I mentioned on the blue card earlier. Here's a black one that is very much a classic zombie tribal lord at the beginning. But of course, its other effect has a more commander-sized ability, which is pretty cool. Brings back your zombies and can be quite potent, of course, getting back your best zombie over and over again. Often, all your creatures get +1/+1 is not like super strong in a commander tribal deck. You want other bonuses. So you need more than kind of just this to get you there. And this ability definitely does it, giving you access to a wealth of goodies in your graveyard later on in the game. All right, so those are the new cards. Let's go through the rest of reprints. It's not really a board sweeper, but like a board protector, a board consternation causer in Aether Spouts here. Forgotten Creation, lots of cool zombie reprints, of course, are going to be here. There's some from the original Innistrad sets, and then this one's from the Shadows over Innistrad block. I think this one's from Dark Ascension, if I remember right. And the blue zombies, the blue zombie helpers tend to make tokens from the graveyard. Kind of blue shtick. Here's a sweet use of using your graveyard for zombie tokens from Amonkhet block. Once again, showing that we're kind of pulling from all over here. Rooftop Storm, a sweet magic zombie tribal card. Stitcher Geralf, of course. Geralf is here. Showed up in a commander deck originally, so cool to have that one back. Undead Alchemist. A good old army. Get 13 2/2 tapped zombies. So yeah, you see a lot of the ways to get zombies on display. But once again, they're not all about zombies here. There's some sacrifice synergies, and Butcher Malik here. Yep, that's a strong one. Make your opponent sacrifice some stuff. Every time one of your Decayed tokens attacks, it'll die, and they'll have to sack something. No way around that for your opponent, except for killing the Butcher, which is pretty brutal. Lots of fun zombie makers here. I mean, a lot of these cards are just like, you know what? This is good in a zombie tribal deck, which is what we have going on here. Or Skeleton Tribal, if you're feeling it with the Death Baron. And it's really cool, I think, and lends to the Innistrad feel of this deck to have so many cards from so many different Innistrad sets in one place, because you're really seeing the full variety of it on display. Oh, this is cool in that it actually impacts I guess if you get your other zombie tokens big enough, if you make a Decayed token a 6 power, it'll gain lifelink. That's pretty funny. Just got to get enough Tribal Lords in play, right? Anything's possible. Here's another Sacrifice Matters cards that is not a zombie itself. Eater of Hope. This to me is just like, when I think of zombie travel from Innistrad, this is like a slam dunk card, right? It's got that amazing artwork with the zombies coming through the church, or about to come through the church, and makes you a bunch of zombie tokens every turn. This is a reason, by the way, you might not want to attack with your Decayed tokens. You know, you might want to just hang on to them and let them spawn more normal zombies every turn. So keep that in mind. Here's a card from Onslaught Zombies, really throwing it back with the Gravespawn Sovereign. Liliana makes zombies. Of course, having Liliana in your zombie deck, that's just nice and on theme. Liliana's Mastery, too. Midnight Reaper, great way to draw cards. Oh, it doesn't draw them off your Decayed tokens, but you still draw a lot of cards, and it's a zombie itself, which is nice. You need card advantage in a deck like this. It's pretty important. Well, believe it or not, I think these occupy the same space in my brain. These are actually different Magic cards, believe it or not. I think they occupy like exactly the same space in my brain, from like the art tones all the way down to how the mechanics work. But they're different cards, and pretty strong. Just seeing those back to back is pretty funny. Oh, Overseer, this is a sick card. You get a lot of zombies off this, and it's an ETB kill something, so that's nice. Of course, you got to have Zombie Apocalypse, and I think this is the first time that this game day art is that this promo art is just printed on a normal non-foil card, so that's pretty cool. Zombie Apocalypse here. Great name for a card. Remember when that was previewed in Dark Ascension, people flipped out. Gisa and Geralf, of course, we're not going to do zombies without them. They're the classic Innistrad couple, and they fit right at home here, and give you another commander to helm the deck, a nice reprint. And some lands, we get Choked Estuary, Darkwater Catacombs, Exotic Orchard. One thing we're trying to do is really, for the most part, give you lands that can come into play untapped, unless they're, I mean, like the Scry lands are pretty solid, and people play with those, but I want to give you some nice untapped dual lands where you can, and then kind of not doing the Guildgate thing anymore, especially for 2-color decks. Mostly just giving you basics instead, because you don't need the mana fixing the Guildgates that badly, and they just slowed you down. They just felt bad for a lot of players. If you like that change, let me know in the comments down below. And then we've got, of course, our tokens. These are double-sided tokens for Commander. So we've got our Decayed Zombie tokens. Lots of Decayed Zombie tokens. You're going to need them. And then I think we've got some normal zombies, too. Yeah, I've got some, Star Zombie, of course. And some normal zombies, so you can distinguish between them and your Decayed. And then your Zombie Army for your War of the Spark cards. Only one Zombie Army, because that's probably all you're ever going to have. It's pretty hard to get more than one of these, unless you like steal it from your opponent or something. And then a Clue token, of course, for the backup commander. And then if you need it, a little turn reminder card. And tells you about the formats a little bit. Cool, so there's a walk through the zombie deck. Let's look through the Coven deck. So zombies, a very known factor in Magic. There's been zombie decks for a very long time. Early Commander decks had a lot of zombie gameplay. Grimgrin, I remember, was a popular early one. Coven, though, brand new mechanic here. Let's see what this Coven Counters deck brings to the table. So once again, these Commander decks are pretty fun, the set-tied ones, because you get to figure out new stuff to do using the mechanics of the set. And bring hope to humanity. Here's exactly what we're going to do with Lenore, the Autumn Sovereign. And so building a deck around Coven sound like a cool thing to do, and then finding ways to make it play interesting. And of course, Counters is the natural choice for Coven, because you get to make your creatures power whatever you need for them to be. Here's, once again, same insert. I'll just show it to you again briefly. That on the back, you got the punch-out counters on the top, or Victory Confetti, depending on your personality. We're going to put those back in the box and focus on this. Lenore's playtest name, I believe, was the Pumpkin King. It's modeled after, the kind of Pumpkin King trope from media. Ended up being a pretty sweet lady, though, so that's cool. Pumpkin swirling around. Love that we got pumpkins in here for just in time for Halloween. I mean, maybe a little early for Halloween, but it's September. We're in spooky season now. It's all Halloween all the time. So you get another one of these life wheels, of course, like we did in the last deck. Here's the insert, which I will once again show off to you, as here's the creative information on Lenore, if you're curious. I'm not going to read the whole thing off. I could do my best spooky voice or storytelling voice, but I think if you want to read it, you can just pause here and read all about Lenore. I'm not going to do it for you, because that way we can just move on with the video. There's sweet cards to look at. And here's, once again, information on playing the deck, the kind of deck tips on how to play Coven Counters, which if you're curious on playing it out of the box, read this. It'll tell you a lot about what's going on. And you got those commander rules once again on this side. And of course, you can always just like cut the second part out or keep the insert kind of half folded and use this as a poster, which is kind of cool. The art on this card is so great. Awesome work by Anna here, making that happen. All right, let's take a look at this thing. Or excuse me, Anna, notably, right, so we do special art for the commander that is on the deck box and on the packaging that is not necessarily the commander's art, just because it's better for packaging or whatever. So different artists touch these. But it's really cool that we get to make special art to show off there, to, you know, put on the front of the package and make it look awesome. All right, so let's take a look at what we got going on in this deck. We got Lenore, and then we got our thick Lenore back here. I always feel like I have to accent when I say the word thick here. Same deal as before, same card stock as the zombie deck. So here's Lenore, the Autumn Sovereign, which gives out counters, which is part of the theme of this deck, and also draws you cards with Coven. So you're going to see a bunch of counter stuff throughout this deck. You're going to see some new Coven cards throughout this deck as well, and you know, a lot of green-white goodies hanging out here. Humans are also the tribe, of course, of Innistrad and green-white, so you're going to see plenty of that too. So here's what Lenore does, the Pumpkin Queen herself. And then the backup commander, Kiker, who is human tribal. So this deck is not inherently a human tribal deck, but like I said earlier with Alois, we like the secondary commander being a great thing to build a whole new commander deck around. So this works fine in this deck. There's enough humans rolling around to make it happen, but you can also just build a very different human tribal deck using Kyler here. All right, and of course, one thing that's fun about Kyler, I think, is it counts all counters, not just +1/+1 counters. So load it up with I don't know, fate counters from your Oblivion Stone, or fate transfer in a bunch of counters or something like that, and you can make your stuff really huge, which is pretty cool. All right, let's keep moving on from Kyler. Here's a new card from Midnight Hunt. So a couple of Midnight Hunt cards made this deck, especially showing off the Coven mechanic. This is unlike Zombies, which had, of course, a lot to draw from. There's only one set with Coven, and it's Midnight Hunt. So we grabbed some of the new cards from the set for that. Dawnheart Warden. This one just gets you an artifact, finds you a mana rock or something. And it's very on theme for the deck. I don't know how much to say about the story, but Moonsilver Key makes a lot of sense in this deck. Now we're going to go into some Counters Matter cards. We've got, of course, some of the Outlast Counters Matters cards from Khans of Tarkir with the Abzan Falcon and the Einok Bonkin. These are like just classics to me at this point. Khans did it so well with the kind of slivery +1/+1 counters cards where it makes all your stuff with the counters better. And Elite Scale Guard too is another really nice one. Orzhov Advocist, I love this. Showed up in a commander deck originally, and it's a cool +1/+1 counters matter card. Or, excuse me, +1/+1 counters granting card that is also political. This card inspired Agitator Ant later on. Maybe we'll do the rest of the cycle someday. I don't know what the other ones do, but good removal. We've got Return to Dust for all those annoying artifacts and enchantments. Swords of Plowshares, of course. Once again, featuring this art in non-foil, which is, I think, we only started doing with Commander Legends, maybe, but cool option for folks. Got some mana acceleration. We got a little Absence Pilgrim going on here. We got Beast Within, another removal spell. Always a tough choice. You put Beast Within or Generous Gift in the green-white deck. We gave you Beast Within here. Have a little beastie. Harder to find those, I think, than Generous Gift, maybe. I honestly don't know. Which is there more of in the world? I guess Generous Gift came later, so it's probably way more Beast Withins. But regardless, give you another Beast Within here. Make a bunch of tokens. This card is awesome with Coven, right? That's why we included this here, because it turns it on automatically. You get a 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3, which will automatically power on all your Coven cards, which is pretty nice. Another card which is great at powering on Coven. You get to basically add a bunch of counters to set them to whatever you need. This should get you to Coven right away. Classic commander card here in Eternal Witness. Growth Spasm 0 is a power, so giving you a 0/1 creature will help turn on your Coven as well. Don't sleep on that. Here's one of those Counters Matters cards. Saves all your stuff. Often with green-white, a problem is your stuff gets wrathed away, and then you're like, uh-oh, don't have enough ways to build back up. This card makes sure you don't get wrathed away, and also draws you a bunch of cards to boot. So it fixes both problems with one pretty saucy card. Another classic, Yavimaya Elder. Enduring Scale Lord. Fun fact, if you get 2 Enduring Scale Lords in play somehow, clone or otherwise, you can go infinite. They trigger off each other. So that's why the May is here. Actually, I think we added the May so that it didn't draw the game, if that occurred. Let you have your fun, but not draw the game, because that's kind of silly. Juniper Ornate Ranger. A nice Cold Snap card. Cold Snap is a pretty wonky Magic set, but did come out with some cool counters cards and just cool Magic cards in general that still seem to play in Commander to this day. along a host of very other head-scratchy cards, but this is one of the cooler ones. And a great way to put a lot of counters on your stuff and just, up their other creatures' power for Coven. Another card like Bestial Menace, which will give you more than you need for Coven right away. A 1/1, a 2/2, a 3/3, and a 4/4. The old 7-mana 1/1, nothing like it. Good old Drastani Summoner, nice Dragon Maze card. Arcane Signet, of course, a staple at this point. Soul Ring. Got some boots. We got a Talisman, another Talisman reprint. I know that's often asked for. Here's our mana base. Got Command Tower. Corrosive Verge, of course, a staple in green-white decks. Just gives you your dual lands. So nice. Mirror Landscape, Path of Ancestry. Okay, cool. Now let's get into talking about the new cards for the Commander decks here. One thing that's always fun is trying to come up with a sweeper that fits the theme of the deck you're working on. Sweepers are always needed in Commander, and you can make a lot of ones with different effects and abilities, and, there's always new space to play around in here, pretty much. And this is a cool take on it of, I get to keep some of my stuff. You might get to keep some of your stuff based on the powers you have around. But if I've done a good job, hopefully I keep more of my stuff than you keep of yours. And, the kind of 6-mana sweeper space in Commander is rife with the potential to make cards like this, which sweep some stuff, but not all stuff. And I think this is a good example of one. Anytime you cast the Plague Wind in Commander, you're in pretty good shape. So if you can Plague Wind the board with this, that'll be pretty nice for this deck. Here's the White Curse. Fun fact, I designed this one. This was my design. Corey was the lead designer of these decks. He was looking for ideas for the curses, and I was like, what about this? Here's this idea, and he liked it and put it in. Makes everything 3/3, which you will usually put on your opponent, make their stuff smaller, but if you have a bunch of small creatures, maybe you put it on yourself, and of course the base power toughness, being 1/1, or being 3/3, lets you use +1/+1 counters to make them a lot larger, so you can use it as an anthem sometimes. Although this is one I think you'll mostly cast on your opponents, unlike maybe the blue one, which you can cast on yourself sometimes. Giving white forms of card advantage is a thing that we're really focusing on trying to do. You've seen some of it come out in recent sets. There's some more in future sets that I'm very excited about. But one way to get card advantage is to bring stuff back from the graveyard. So this is a way to, when it dies, you get back a host of stuff from your graveyard. Starts off as only 4 power worth of stuff, but make its power larger with +1/+1 counters. You can get a lot of stuff back. Also, I'm sure there's some various kind of change you can do with this. It does exile itself, but even still, like, just double sacrificing all your stuff is pretty strong. Here is Sigarda's Vanguard, a new angel for the deck with a lot of humans. Makes a lot of sense. This isn't directly a Coven ability. It doesn't care about 3 powers, but it looks at different powers in particular, so we found other ways to look at that in this deck, and of course, double striking them is naturally pretty exciting. Note that one of the fun things we did here was give it a little defensive ability. I think originally, and I don't know this for sure, but I think originally it was just when it attacks. But by giving it Flash and ETB do this, it lets you also play it defensively, which is nice, and potentially blow your opponent out in combat. You can also target 1/11 commanders when you get to create political things, and this lets you target other players' creatures. So maybe you're not even being attacked. Attacks and blocks have been declared, and then you slam this down, and you kill someone out of nowhere because you double strike someone else's creatures that weren't blocked. Allows for a lot of fun gameplay like that. We always look for that fun emergent gameplay in our new commander cards. Here's a new Coven card in the Stalwart Pathlighter. One thing that is definitely commander sized is giving all your creatures indestructible. If you have Coven because you want to be able to attack, often we're looking for ways to break through complicated board states where the board is very full. And indestructible is a great way to do that because it just means that I'm safe to attack no matter what. My stuff's not going to die. Just make sure I leave enough to block with. And in fact, this can even hang back to block with Vigilance. So it also allows you to, it works right away, which is really nice. You can play it even if it can't attack that turn. Its Coven ability will still go off and let your stuff be indestructible. So making sure that there's enough board breakers, especially in precons, is really important. And this does a solid job of that. Brand new Wall of Mourning, and not the kind that happens at 8 a.m., but the Mourning of Sadness. This is a source of card advantage you can get in white. We're looking at ways to give white card advantage. You've seen some we've done recently with cards like, what's that called? The Archaeomancer's Map and Secret Rendezvous. And, we're just going to keep trying out different ways of giving white different forms of card advantage that feel very white. And one way is the delayed draw. So this is a card that draws you some cards over time. It can draw you maximum of 1 card a turn, which is kind of the limiter we set on it. And, looking at Lashiel, for example, another card which draws you 1 card per turn. And of course, it plays into the theme of the deck. So if you're playing Coven, this can be a 2-mana draw 3 card defender, which is pretty nice. So, you know, I expect this card to see play not in every white deck, but if you're playing enough white creatures to hit that Coven trigger, it's pretty solid as a 2-mana draw 3 that's also a creature to boot. And notably, it puts you 1 toward its ability itself, right? It gives you that 0 power, which is pretty hard to get a lot of the time. So you really only need this in 2 other creatures to make it happen. So I expect this to see a decent amount of play. Here is Celebrate the Harvest. Once again, caring about your different powers, giving you some basic lands. It is bounded by the number of powers you have, but even if this gets you 3 lands or 4 lands for 4 mana, it's quite good. A really good follow-up to one of those token makers like Bestial Menace or something like that. Or, you know, even just casting it for Explosive Vegetation on turn 4 is a fine card that gets played in Commander sometimes. So I like flexible cards like this that you're fine getting a floor on of like 2 creatures sometimes, 2 powers, but can do a lot more if you build around them. I think that's pretty cool. Here's Curse of Clinging Webs, which is the green one in this cycle. And once again, often you'll target your opponent, but sometimes you'll target yourself. If you are a sacrifice deck, for example, you'll want to put this on yourself. Allows you to double sack all your stuff. Spiders, man, so scary. Curse of Clinging Webs. Here's the Heronblade Elite, which gives you mana for your humans. Very reminiscent of Marwyn the Nurturer, if you all know that card. We wanted to have a little bit of human tribal running around here because there's enough humans to make it happen. Green-white is the human tribe in Innistrad. So this is a card where, once again, it's always a 3-mana mana dork that works on its own. And notably, it doesn't need humans to work. You can just give it +1/+1 counters to pump this up and make a ton of mana. Cortex is kind of like a much better Viridian Joiner, if you all know that card from Mirrodin. Maybe no one else remembers it. If you know what Viridian Joiner does, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm just been playing for Magic for too long. But anyway, so it's kind of a nice straddling between working with the deck themes, but having a bit of human synergy in there too, so it feels like it's connected together. Even though you don't need any humans to make this last ability still strong. Here's the green commander here. And you know what? I apologize. I told a slightly incorrect story earlier. Corey, if you're listening to this, hopefully you got this far, so you know I wasn't misquoting you. This was the Pumpkin King. Kerberos was originally the Pumpkin King card that we talked about. I forgot that playtest name wasn't for the commander, it was for the backup commander here. So this was themed as the Pumpkin King, and that's, you know, kind of spreads counters around, and that's what's going on here with this card. So if you got this far, you know, you can leave a comment in the comments saying Kerberos is the Pumpkin King, so that everyone knows and there's no ambiguity about it. So that I get there eventually. Apologies to Corey for ruining his playtest name. So rude. Ruinous Intrusion. This card's got a fun story behind it. It was designed by Robert Schuster, who worked on these decks as well with Chris and Corey at various points in time. Robert had been trying to get this card made in many different sets, and it always got cut for whatever reason. Responses range from this is way too strong, or it's too boring, or it, whatever. It doesn't fit the deck. Finally, Robert got it made here, which I'm so glad he got to do, given that put so much time and effort in trying to get it made other places. And the cool part is I think it's very validating for Robert because people are really enjoying this card. The response has been really positive on social media, so after a long journey, it's finally in, and it feels good when you fight for something. It finally comes out and folks like it. So hopefully you all like Ruinous Intrusion. Here is Saguardian Zealot. Once again, another card, or Zealot, excuse me. Another card which cares about the different powers of your creatures. Doesn't have Coven directly, but basically pumps a bunch of things up by 3. It's kind of like an overrun. But like a lot of cards in this set, in this deck, which key off of power, this is a great card to pump up with your counters because then you make it huge and you pump your other creatures up by a ton and double it up itself. Also notably, it gives it everything Vigilance, which is another way to do a board breaker, because if you feel safe attacking with your 7/7 creature, if you don't need it to block, then because you know you can block anyway off the Vigilance, then it helps you feel okay attacking and dealing damage to your opponent. Here is Somberwald Beastmaster, which takes a note out of the Tristani's Summoner Bestial Menace playbook and gives you 3 differently sized tokens, which is pretty cool, turning that on immediately. And then also gives all your tokens Death Touch, which is a nice little token matters reward for a deck that makes a decent number of tokens. Really, you play this on rate just for the different tokens anyway. It's like a bonus Tristani Summoner. Here's the Angel of Glory's Rise with this sweet artwork, by the way. Check out this art on Angel of Glory's Rise if you haven't seen that one before. This is a reprint that kills off all zombies, which is especially brutal in the Biodome, right? You kill off, we call the Biodome the 2 decks together. We're through the new cards, by the way. You've seen the new cards now. This will kill off all your opponent's zombies. Very mean. Reprint of Bastion Protector. Very exciting. I know this is a card that a lot of folks were trying to get their hands on. Got a lot better after Commander Legends with the partners. Citadel Siege. Nice card from Concept Tarkir block that gets you counters every single turn. You can choose the other mode too, but I don't think that's what you're going to be doing here a lot of the time. Cleansing Nova. Nice little sweeper. We like making versatile cards like this in our Commander decks to give you outs to artifacts and enchantments. So Cleansing Nova does a good job there. Card that cares about number of creatures, also makes tokens, also lets you move its power around by removing counters. So this is great. It's from Conspiracy originally, part of a cycle. It's Humans Matter card. Makes your humans come in with different, with a counter on them, so they have more unusual power toughnesses. Cards that grow over time like this, once a great game, great with Coven because it just lets you toggle your counters to where you want to be, your powers to where you want them to be. And then, of course, make your humans cost less equal to its counters. That's for fun stuff. Non-token Wrath. Nice stuff. Give you a little bit of white ramp here and then the white orchid. Also a human, despite that the artwork looks like a lion. There's a human riding that lion, so it gets the job done. Here's Machias the Lunarch. Great reprint from Innistrad originally. Pumps up all your stuff, which is pretty nice. Once again, a card that really helps you set its power and other creatures' power to a wide variety of numbers. Audric, fun story about this Audric is everyone thinks of Audric as an Innistrad character, but this character appeared first in M13, set on Innistrad, and we didn't see him actually in an Innistrad set until last time. So it's cool to see Audric from M13 here in an Innistrad deck. It really brings the whole thing full circle. Riders of Gavin. In with Gavin in it, always a special place in my heart, given, Gavin. The German plane Gavin is called Gavin, and so I just have that at my desk at work. Human tribal card. Of course, you want to have a bit of that going on here. We got another protection spell. Once again, you build up your Coven. You don't want it to just get blown up by a Wrath. So this is a really nice flexible one that you can also use on the offensive if you want, and puts a counter on your creatures to boot. Speaking of putting counters on your creatures, a lot of folks probably don't know this card. This is one of the theme booster cards from Theros Beyond Death. It fits in right at home here. Champion of Lamholt. Once again, it just grows, makes your stuff hard to block, good with counters. Another way to ship around your counters. Make sure that your counters don't go to waste, because if a creature with a lot of counters dies, well, just go on the next creature. Everything is modular, basically, which is pretty cool. This card can make a lot of mana if you give it enough counters. Not unlike the other card we saw here, the new card. Kessage Cage Breakers make a bunch of wolves. This gives you a little bit of late game power. This card was huge in Commander many years ago. It's fallen a little out of favor now, but still a human, still works here, still gives you some fun tokens. Drawing tons of cards, gaining some life. Somberwald Sage gives you some mana to cast your high-end Coven cards. This is a great card for this deck, allowing you to distribute your counters around. The Verter's Gearhulk. Pump up its power, pump up everything else's power. Profit. Wild Beastmaster. Here's the Heron's Grace Champion, another human tribal card. Once again, a little bit of that human tribal going on here. It's not all about that, but it's got a little bit. Sigarda as well. You can play this as your commander if you really want to, although I'd play the other cards if you could. Source of card advantage. It's important in these decks that there's some stuff that will survive a sweeper in case you do get swept and don't have a protection spell, so this will survive and give you some cards back, which is nice. And then we're on to the mana base. We got Exotic Orchard, Fortified Village, Canopy Vista, Sungrass Prairie. Once again, a lot of untapped duels. We're trying to do the thing where we don't include as many or very few tapped duels. Temple's going to pass, though, because they're sweet. People like playing those in their decks. Same for these things, the bounce lands. Those are huge. Go through the land base here. Goodbye, basic lands. Love that we get the new pumpkin art in here, though. Right, that's really on theme. And then we get to the tokens. So a wide variety of funky tokens in this deck. Right, you got your snake for Bestial Menace. We got wolf, elephant. We got 2/2 knights. We got centaurs. We got rhinos. We got more wolves. Beasts, 3/3 beasts. 4/4 beasts. Eldrazi spawn. Really a wild mix. On the back side of the double-sided tokens, we have human soldiers. Spider for, of course, the curse. We might make a lot of spiders that way. Wolves, spirits, and then this little reminder card. Well, hopefully you enjoyed this look through the 2 commander decks of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. If you have any questions or thoughts on them, let me know in the comments down below. Please go ahead and leave a comment. If you made it all the way to the end, post a comment just saying the words Pumpkin King. That'll be our little secret code word for the episode today. Always curious how many folks made it all the way through. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll be back to talk with you again on Monday. In the meantime, have a lot of fun with Commander. Hopefully you enjoy these cool cards, and enjoy, hey, Innistrad pre-releases this weekend. Go out, enjoy the pre-release. Take care, everybody, and remember, you got this.